For our backstroke pull, we're looking for our hands to enter really on our fingertips, and mostly we want to try to enter on our pinky and our ring fingertip as we're putting that hand in the water behind us. We're then looking to pull that hand forward into an early vertical forearm position. It looks a little bit different from our other strokes, but just like our other strokes, we want to make sure that we're getting a nice early vertical forearm when we're doing our backstroke pull. Throughout the propulsive phase of our stroke, we want to make sure that our fingertips are pointing at the side walls of the pool. And just like with our other strokes, we want to make sure that that arm is staying in our early vertical forearm position throughout the propulsive phase of our stroke. As our hand approaches the hip, we want to sweep down just a little bit to aid the rotation and to get that hand into the recovery position. As the hand's exiting the water, we want to exit on our thumb or the back of our hand as we're coming back up. During the recovery phase of the stroke, we want to make sure that our arm is remaining perfectly straight as we're coming up, and as we reach that halfway point, we're beginning to rotate our wrists to make sure that we can enter on our pinky and our ring fingertips again. In a great backstroke recovery, we're also trying to see if maybe we can get that armpit to break the surface of the water a little bit. And in our re-entry position, we want to try and enter at, if we're looking at a clock, at 10 o'clock and at 2 o'clock, and not necessarily right up here at midnight. The reason being is once we add that rotation, that arm is going to be crossed over behind us. Whereas if I entered at 10 o'clock here and I added my rotation, that arm is going to be directly behind me so I can get into that pull. Just like with freestyle, we want to make sure that our rotation is driven by the hips and our shoulders are following our hip action. And we want swimmers to rotate just enough to make sure that during that propulsive phase of the stroke, the hand is about 2 to 3 inches below the surface of the water. Not too deep, but not too shallow. And with our flutter kick, we want to make sure that that kick starts at our hips and not from our knees, and we're keeping the core engaged. Remember that core is the engine for our kick. We should have relaxed knees and ankles during our flutter kick. The knee bend and the ankle action should feel natural as a natural movement extending from the hip. And of course, we want to make sure that we have a nice balance between our up kick and our down kick. For great body position in backstroke, we're looking for 3 things. First, we want to make sure that our head is in a neutral position, just like we would if we're standing up. We don't want to be looking up here, and we don't want to be looking down here. We want it to be right where we keep our head normally when we're walking around. Just like we want to keep our head in a neutral position, ultimately we want our shoulders to be in a relaxed neutral position as well. We don't want them to be rounded forward, and we don't want to be puffing our chest out while we're swimming backstroke. We should have a nice, relaxed shoulders. I like to think about it as my shoulders are just melting away from my ears until they get into that relaxed position. And that's the position we want for backstroke. We also want to make sure that our hips are staying right at the surface of the water while we're swimming our backstroke stroke.